Ladies and gentlemen, in this life, you can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. You can't control what people say or how they treat you. But there is one thing, one powerful thing. You can control yourself. And the moment you learn to master that is the moment life stops happening to you and starts happening for you. Ladies and gentlemen, the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who has control over their emotions, their actions, and their choices. Think about that for a second. We live in a world where people often confuse strength with volume. They think strength is about shouting the loudest, proving a point, winning every argument, or flexing in front of others to show power. But real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that changes your life, isn't about what you can control around you. It's about what you can control within you. Because here's the truth: life is unpredictable. People will frustrate you. Circumstances will blindside you. Plans will fall apart. But when you have control of yourself, when you can master your own emotions instead of letting them master you, then it doesn't matter what the world throws at you. You remain steady, unshaken, and focused. That is real power. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe your first instinct was to slam the horn, yell at the windshield, maybe even follow them to prove your point. But ask yourself, did that moment of anger change the situation? Did it teach that driver a lesson? Or did it just steal your peace, raise your blood pressure, and distract you from your own destination? That's the trap. When we let the outside world dictate our reactions, we're handing over control. And the more we hand over control, the weaker we become, even if we think we're standing up for ourselves. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine someone cuts you off and instead of exploding, you take a deep breath, you let them go, and you focus back on your drive. You just kept your peace. You just saved your energy. You just proved to yourself that nobody else gets to decide how you feel. That is strength. The strongest person in the room doesn't need to prove anything. They don't need to fight every fight. They don't need to dominate every conversation. Because strength isn't about control over others, it's about control over self. When you know how to pause, when you know how to hold back when every part of you wants to lash out, when you know how to respond instead of react, that is when you become unshakable. Think about the people you admire, the leaders, the mentors, the voices of wisdom. They don't panic under pressure. They don't explode when things go wrong. They don't collapse when the storm hits. They stand firm, calm, collected. Why? Because they've mastered themselves. They've put in the work to discipline their emotions, to train their thoughts, to sharpen their responses. And that mastery gives them influence. That mastery gives them respect. That mastery makes them the strongest person in the room, even if they never raise their voice. Self-control is not weakness. It is not silence. It is not passive. It's one of the hardest, most demanding forms of strength you can develop. Anybody can explode when they're angry. Anybody can quit when they're tired. Anybody can lash out when they're offended. That doesn't take strength. That takes zero effort. But to hold your ground, to keep your composure, to stand tall when your feelings are screaming at you to break, that takes discipline. That takes courage. That takes mental toughness. Every day you're tested. At work, at home, in traffic, in conversations online. Someone will say something that gets under your skin. Someone will try to push your buttons. Something will go wrong, and your emotions will want to take over. But those are your opportunities. That's where the strongest person in the room is revealed. It's not revealed in comfort, it's revealed in chaos. When everyone else is losing their cool, but you keep yours, that's strength. And here's the part most people miss: self-control doesn't just protect you from bad moments, it also propels you toward your goals. Because the same discipline it takes to control your anger is the same discipline it takes to control your habits. The same discipline it takes to hold your tongue is the same discipline it takes to hold your focus. The strongest person in the room isn't just strong emotionally, they're strong mentally, physically, spiritually, because they've learned that success in any area of life begins with mastery of self. Let me give you an example. Think about health. You want to get stronger, fitter, healthier, but late at night the cravings hit. Junk food calls your name. Now anyone can give in. Anyone can say, just one more bite, just one more cheat. That's easy. But strength is saying, no, I made a commitment. I'm in control. My goals matter more than my temptations. That is control. That is strength. Or think about relationships. Someone you love says something that hurts you. Instantly, you want to snap back, defend yourself, maybe even throw an insult. But self-control is stopping, breathing, and choosing your words carefully. Strength is not destroying the relationship to win the argument, but protecting the relationship by choosing patience and kindness over pride. That is control, that is strength. Or think about leadership. A leader who panics, who yells, who loses their cool under stress. No one follows them with respect. But a leader who can stay calm when the pressure is on, who can make decisions with clarity instead of fear, that leader inspires confidence. That leader earns trust. That leader has strength because they have control. See, strength isn't about what you can lift in the gym. It's about what you can carry in your mind. It's about how much pressure you can take without cracking. It's about how much pain you can feel without letting it turn into bitterness. It's about how much chaos you can walk through without losing your peace. And that kind of strength doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself. But here's the challenge: control doesn't come naturally. We're wired for reaction. We're wired for comfort. We're wired for instant gratification. That's why this journey isn't easy. That's why not everyone becomes the strongest person in the room, because it takes practice. It takes intention. It takes a decision every single day to say, I will not be ruled by emotions. I will not be ruled by circumstances. I will not be ruled by impulses. I will rule myself. Every time you hold your tongue when you want to explode, you're building strength. Every time you choose patience over anger, you're building strength. Every time you stay disciplined when temptation calls, you're building strength. And every time you do that, you prove to yourself that you are in control. You prove that you are stronger than your feelings. You prove that you are the strongest person in the room. When you control yourself, you control the direction of your life, because discipline is the doorway to freedom. Think about that for a moment. We often imagine freedom as doing whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. But if we're honest, that isn't freedom. That's chaos. True freedom isn't the absence of limits, it's the presence of control. Freedom is the ability to choose the life you want, not the life your impulses decide for you. And the way to get there is through discipline, through self-control, through the daily choice to govern yourself before the world tries to govern you. When you control yourself, you are no longer a prisoner to your moods, your cravings, your distractions. You stop being a puppet pulled by strings of temptation or circumstance. You begin to steer your own ship. You choose your path with clarity instead of being dragged by every storm that comes your way. And that is real freedom. Think about the athlete who wakes up at 5 a.m. every day to train. People might say, that's not freedom, that's slavery to a routine. But look deeper. Because of that discipline, that athlete is free. Free to run faster, free to compete stronger, free to step into arenas that undisciplined people will never touch. Discipline didn't trap them. It opened doors. Now think about someone chasing success in business. If they lack self-control, they get distracted, they procrastinate, they waste hours scrolling, watching, talking instead of working. On the outside, they're free to do whatever they want. But in reality, they're trapped in habits that steal their future. On the other hand, someone who builds discipline, who controls themselves enough to focus, to prioritize, to stay consistent. Suddenly opportunities open. They get promotions. They start businesses. They achieve results others only dream of. That is freedom created by discipline. When you control yourself, you also control your emotions. And emotions are powerful. They can build or they can destroy. Anger can break relationships in a second. Jealousy can poison trust. Fear can paralyze potential. But discipline steps in and says, no, I will not let my feelings run my future. I will feel them, but I will not be ruled by them. That choice, that control, sets you free. Because instead of reacting to life, you start responding to it with wisdom, with strength, with purpose. Look at the small examples in your daily life. You set an alarm in the morning. When it rings, you have two choices. Hit snooze, roll over, give in to comfort. Or get up, take control, and set the tone for your day. That one moment doesn't just shape your morning. It shapes your mindset. Because every small decision you make is either training you in weakness or training you in strength. And when you stack up enough small disciplined decisions, you create momentum that carries you forward. Discipline is the doorway to freedom in finances too. Spend recklessly, swipe without thinking, Chase every shiny purchase. You might feel free in the moment, but soon debt chains you down. Bills pile up. Stress eats at you. That's not freedom. That's slavery to impulses. But the person who controls themselves, who budgets, who saves, who says no to short-term wants for long-term security, that person gains freedom. Freedom from debt. Freedom to travel. Freedom to give generously. Freedom to build the life they want. Discipline built that door, and freedom waited on the other side. It's the same with health. Eat everything you crave, skip workouts, ignore rest, and soon your body isn't free. It's tired. It's weak. It's sick. But control yourself, discipline your body, fuel it with what it needs, move it daily, rest it wisely, and suddenly you're free. Free to move without pain. Free to live with energy. Free to chase adventures at any age. Freedom didn't come from doing whatever you wanted. It came from doing what you needed. The strongest leaders, the wisest voices, the people we respect the most, they all have this in common. They mastered themselves before they tried to master anything else. Because if you cannot control yourself, how can you control your future? If you cannot lead yourself, how can you lead others? Self-control is the foundation of all achievement. Without it, everything collapses. With it, everything is possible. And here's the hard truth: control is not natural. Our natural state is to seek comfort, to avoid effort, to chase instant gratification. That's why so many people feel stuck, trapped, frustrated, because they've mistaken comfort for freedom. But comfort without discipline creates chains. Discipline creates doors. Doors to strength, doors to growth, doors to a life most people will never experience. Every choice you make is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every time you choose discipline, you are voting for freedom. Every time you choose control, you are voting for strength. Every time you say no to what's easy so you can say yes to what matters, you are building a life that no one can take from you. The world is full of noise, distractions, temptations. But the strongest person isn't the one who silences the world, it's the one who silences themselves. Who can sit with their thoughts and not run? Who can feel fear and not bow? Who can want comfort and still choose challenge? That is control, that is discipline, that is freedom. And freedom is what we are all chasing. Freedom to live fully. Freedom to dream boldly. Freedom to wake up every day knowing we are steering the ship of our own life instead of being tossed around by the waves. That kind of freedom cannot be bought. It cannot be handed to you. It cannot be inherited. It is earned. Earned through the daily grind of discipline. Earned through the quiet victories when no one is watching. Earned through the courage to control yourself when it would be easier to give in. When you control yourself, you unlock potential you didn't even know you had. You start to see how much you are capable of when you are no longer a slave to distraction, to temptation, to emotion. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, the world starts to respect you too.